The US has to pay back or refinance $9.2 trillion of its debt this year, and that's why the system is trying to make a bunch of economic emergencies. One word you have to keep in mind when it comes to bonds and debt is maturity. If a treasury bond has a 10-year maturity, that means you have to pay it back in 10 years. And if you look at this table of the amount of dollars in US debt maturity, you could see 2025 is very, very high. And the US is most likely not going to pay off most of that debt. They're going to refinance it, and they're going to try to set a new interest rate for it. You could say interest rate or yield, it's pretty much the same thing. But however you want to call it, the rate that the US government is paying for its debt is extremely high, over 4%, almost reaching 5%. If you're curious about this, it is the yield curve for all the debt that the US government issues, and you could find it on USTreasuryYieldCurve.com. While Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and defense are huge chunks of the US annual budget, so are the total interest payments that the US has to pay just to service this huge amount of debt. It's totaling about $800 billion because these rates are so high. But if there is an economic emergency that somehow takes place, like let's say unnecessary tariffs on our greatest trading partners, and maybe a new disease outbreak that comes out that's not even being properly reported yet, then the Federal Reserve will start lowering interest rates at a more drastic rate, and most likely we will start to see economic stimulus put through for everybody. And that means Treasury bonds start going up in value because people are trying to flock to a safe haven asset that can pay them some yield. And it also means that interest payments from those Treasury bonds that the US government would have to pay start to drop. Look at this yield curve for every bit of US debt in March of 2021. Take a look at the vast majority of interest rates of US debt being less than 0.5%. And if that $9.2 trillion of US debt gets to have its interest rate drop from, let's say, 3.5% or 4% to less than 0.5% or even 1%, then that's at least $100 billion in debt servicing payments that the US government doesn't have to make this year. Now, lowering debt payments isn't the only reason why our current administration is orchestrating an economic catastrophe, but it's definitely one of the top tier ones. I am the Geo Husar, and you should be looking at yield curves every day. Thanks for watching.